There's me. I'm going live. Let's see if I get Mateo here. Boom. Boom.
Aaron, brother.
All right, we should be.
Well, I think I need to mute you on something because I'm hearing the reverb.
Yeah, there's some, like, maybe there's something that you got to mute.
Let me try to mute you on.
Mic check for Mateo. 1, 2 on the ones and twos. No. Because I can't hear it. Oh wait, no, there we go. Now I got a little kickback. So we're trying something new, everybody. We're basically trying to go live on LinkedIn, live on Zoom, same time, same audio, trying to figure it out. So give us one more second here before we get into it. Is it okay for you now?
It's not. I mean, I can work through it, but I wonder if the audience is hearing a reverb.
Let's see. Let's see if everyone can hear. Hey, what's up, everyone? If you're on LinkedIn or you're on Zoom, let us know if the audio, the visual, how everything's sounding for you. If it's not duplicative, if it is, what is it? Duplicative? Is that a word? Is that the right word? You're the author, man. You got to help me.
It's duplicated.
All right, everyone's saying it's good. Everyone says that the audio
and also one last check. Can you hear like a humming or anything in the background? Because I have my AC running, but I can turn it off.
I can't really hear. No, I can't really hear much.
All right, baby, that's good because it's like 100 degrees over here, man. I'm not trying to melt on camera.
I'm in Austin, man. It's like 99 every single day, dude.
Really? And it's dry?
Yeah, no, Austin is not dry. It's not like Phoenix or something. It's like, it's not. It's the opposite of that. It's like sticky and kind of gross, but not too bad. So what's up, everybody? So appreciate you tuning in. All right, we've got people rolling in on Zoom. We got people rolling in on LinkedIn Live, which is awesome. Either one, it's the same two dudes, same stream, right? Wherever you prefer, you can hang out with us. So if you are on the Zoom, do me a favor, drop your job title, what company you're with. Same thing. Again, I'm telling you, Mateo, multiple times, if you get active in the comments and I've had multiple, this dude hit me up. He's like, Jake, I literally set 2 meetings from getting involved in like the comments on your LinkedIn Live. So I'm like, surprised. Hey, dude, you got to make it work. Yeah. So let me ask you this. So you hear an echo, right? When I talk,
yeah.
I hear one. Yeah. So I can hear it too. So, all right, well, we're almost there. At least it's good for the audience, right? That's all that matters.
I'm not worried about it. The thing about, I got 2 things to say. The first is that, you and I were discussing the weather, and salespeople are always told not to discuss the weather. At least that's even a rule that I put like in my book as a joke, but the weather is sometimes so relevant. Like, it's 100 degrees in Austin over here. What do you think about that?
Yeah, exactly. I got no problem with the weather. Like, I've got absolutely no issue with the weather. Why is that?
Okay,
Why
cool.
is that a no-no? Is it because it's so cheesy? It comes off cheesy, right?
Yeah, and they feel like everyone is doing the same thing, But the second thing that I was going to say is just, claps for you, because if people are setting meetings from your comments, that means that you create a real community.
That's what we're working
on,
man.
Transactional thing. That's dope.
That's what we're looking for. All right, we got Madeline McCauley. She's looking for her first sales role. Well, maybe we're either going to encourage you out of this going into sales, or maybe you'll go pick a different profession once Mateo once Mateo gets rolling. We'll see. No, it's the best. So that's awesome. So everyone, look. So I'm going to set the stage a little bit, Mateo, and I've got a list of questions here I want to hop into. Mm-hmm. Mateo and I have known each other for 5 years, 2015. He was the head of sales development at a company in New York, and we worked with that company on a few different strategies and different, things within the company. At that time, Mateo, you were running a team of 40 SDRs or so, something like that?
It was, give or take a couple. It was definitely like 30, 32 at times, sometimes more, sometimes less when we were in plus.
Yeah, and I would say, at the time, you were probably, I would say in New York in 2015, how many tech companies were raising 70 mil, building out and weren't pure S&B, right? We had like, Yext and some of these other ones, but I would say you were at like, probably like one of the fastest growing startups in New York at the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and we definitely were. And you would also know because you were interacting with so many folks back then. You're interacting with a lot more now, but you're in Austin. So you were keyed into both San Francisco and the New York City ecosystem. But from my perspective, we definitely were. And I knew it from going to just different meetups, from seeing things on LinkedIn. And of course, there were folks like Zenefit, those types of folks that were growing much faster than us. But it was a totally different thing. And we also saw how some of those companies ended.
We'll either skip past or dive into that. We'll see how we're feeling today. How do you feel? So how'd you get into sales? Like, how did you like decide on that? Because you've been writing your whole life, right? I mean, you've been writing.
Yeah, I've been writing. I've been writing a variety of things my whole life, right? Like for me, I learned early on, fortunately, through reading and through the help of some mentors, that writing is key. And what's crazy, I wrote a piece for Entrepreneur talking about how companies are spending billions of dollars every year on training their employees how to write. That most employees just can't write well, whether you're in a manufacturing industry or somewhere else. So for me, writing was always key. And when I got into sales, I learned that if you could create a narrative out of your emails, out of your weekly updates. I mean, I worked with you, Jake. You saw my updates were like a narrative, across all of my clients, that you could get more buy-in, you can inspire people more, and that you're just not going to bore people with numbers. But to answer your question of how I got into sales, I started as an intern. At this company. I was out of college, and without going too much into the story, I was applying to different roles. I was applying to like 30 jobs a day. I was living at my parents' house in Long Island, and then I had some interviews. I interviewed with this one company that was teaching people how to use the internet. And during the second interview, they said, "Listen, man," it was actually for a writing role, for like video content for them, because the content was 60 to 90-second lessons to teach people how to use the internet. And this isn't when I was thinking about sales, or even writing in general. It was just a job that I applied for. And they said, "Listen, man, we just hired 2 guys from Wesleyan, and we're going to hire them, but, we'll have you intern here." And I said, "Intern?" I was like, man, I graduated magna cum laude from NYU. I've traveled all around the world. I'm like 20, and I got a lot to offer. And my friends are making $65K right now. What? And they said, "Yeah, we're not going to pay you either." I said, whoa. But something told me to do it. And it was honestly one of the best decisions of my life, even though it was that whole free labor type of thing. So after working there for a couple of months, for free, I basically transitioned like 6 months later into a community manager role, doing social media and managing the community. And then a few months after that, let's call it like 5 months, the CEO said, "We need to start a sales team." And fortunately, I had a conversation with one of our investors at a happy hour. I was super hungry, man. So hungry that I wasn't like even getting like sloshed off the sauce at that point. I was like, "I see this investor. Let me talk to him." And this investor, I found out like a year later, put in a good word and told the CEO, "Mateo's the one. Start the sales team with Mateo." Even though I was 20, 21 at this point, not knowing what I was doing. Yeah. So it was me, the CEO, another co-founder in this pit. I was cold calling people, marbles in my mouth, almost getting fired once or twice because I just did not know what I was doing. But eventually it started to click. And then I'll end the story here, where basically I closed some deals, probably, a couple $1,000s worth of deals. But then they saw that my niche was in setting these meetings with huge people, with companies I didn't even know. They're like, "How did you get a meeting with Tyco?" I said, "What's Tyco? What are you talking about?" And they said, "Listen, man, you're too green to be closing like 6-figure deals. Like, start handing them to us." So we segued, and I saw that sales development was where I could really shine. And within 2 years, the sales team grew from just me to over 90 people. The company grew from 20 when I started interning to 230. We raised like 65, 70 mil. And it wasn't, I'm not going to lie, it wasn't a happy ending for everyone. And I ended up leaving in 2016, but it was one of the best professional experiences of my life.
Yeah. And that's, I think it's interesting. Well, no, it's great, dude. And there's some people in here, again, who are looking for jobs or who are thinking about their first career, next career move. And there's something that you mentioned that I've talked a lot about too, which is you take job, every role in your career is for a better opportunity. Pay comes, it happens, and it's the people that I see that are the most unhappy in sales. And a lot of these guys too, Mateo, that the people that I see that are the most unhappy are the guys that they started making a few $100,000 a year and they get stuck. They can't, and then they build a lifestyle. I see this with a lot of sales leaders in particular. They get up, and a lot of you might hear this. You might be like, "Oh, you're making 350,000, 400, boo-hoo." But the sad part is that they then build a lifestyle because they had to go get that extra house in Connecticut. They had to go put their kids into $50,000 a year private school, their 2 kids, and now they're stuck, right? And because they weren't always looking for the next opportunity, they were only cared about, how do I optimize my income? But then, the in and out is about net even. That they can't actually go do what they love or what they're passionate about because they've got to go to the next thing and make the money. Or I've seen other people who just stay an individual contributor because, leadership doesn't pay as well. It's like, okay, we'll fast forward 5 years and then who's making more money? And I feel like a lot of people earlier in their career just don't, again, to your point, they're making 65. I want to make 65, or I got to keep up and make sure I'm up with them. But, look, take your story, for example, here. But the thing I think about your story is like, you're also out there busting your ass when you had it. You weren't like a lot of interns where they're like, okay, well, I was told to do this job, so I'll just go do this job, and they made it happen. So what did you love about the job, man? When you got into this SDR game and you're now managing a big team, you had multiple outbound teams, you had an inbound team. What did you love about sales? Like, what was your favorite part about it? What was your favorite part about the SD world? What really motivated you to kind of do that for as long as you did?
Sure. And I'm going to address something that you just brought up, in terms of people who are making a lot of money, for most compared to most Americans, especially, right? Even 6 figures is a lot compared to most Americans. And the thing with a lot of those people that find themselves making absurd amounts of money, but being unhappy, is that they were either in prison to begin with in their mind, right? Before they even started making that money, or they constructed a prison around them. And I'm not going to lie, when I was in the thick of it at this startup, I had constructed many prisons around me and my mind and my heart, and my spirit, if we want to even go there, that I had to, when I quit, break out of. But there were also so many pros. The other day I saw some people taking an upset approach or an upset, perception to you saying that there's a lot of startups, there's a lot of bullshit in startups and like the sales leader cycle. I saw that. And I was like, there is. Like, let's not kid ourselves. Anyone that's like, hey, it's just all rosy and flowers and whatnot, even though roses, flowers, rainbows are beautiful things to behold. There's so much bullshit in startups. You're not in a startup and you're not really aware if you aren't aware of that. But my point is that there's also a lot of good. So when I was an SDR, man, I was grateful and blessed for the fact that I loved being on the phone. I loved calling people. And, a lot of people say, especially when you're hiring AEs or SDRs, I love being on the phone. Half of them, if not more than half, actually don't. I love being on the phone. 80, 90% don't. I loved calling people up. I love just talking to people. But more importantly, and I'm going to keep it super real, I'm not going to lie to anyone. I'm not going to lie to anyone on this LinkedIn Live or whatever we're on StreamYard, Vid, whatever you got. I got you everywhere, man. I got Mateo worldwide. I love to win. And it felt like I won every time I called someone and set that meeting or closed that deal. And it wasn't pushy. It wasn't hostile in any way. It wasn't like, I'm going to dominate you. I'm going to body you, Jenny, in Iowa, and you're going to take this meeting. It was honestly more so through my personality, through being like chipper naturally and being naturally curious and being able to empathize with them during their hard times and during their triumphs. And also, again, bringing it back to the point of this talk, learning their story and sharing my own so we could connect. But after a call, when I would do a hot handoff or a cold handoff, or if we would do a one call close or anything like that, I had such a jolt of energy that I said, hell yeah, I can make it. And this was before we had auto dialers, at least in my company. I was like, I'll make another 150 calls by hand and be here until like 8 or 9 because I'm loving it. Now I'm older. Years have passed where I don't have that type of energy, to be completely honest, or desire.
Right.
So that's something I loved. I loved the camaraderie. And it just goes back to people being more mission driven than money driven, because the people that I was with, they were in the trenches with me, and we'd come in and we'd start calling the Far East. We'd start calling Europe together. We would joke about whatever's going on, with this South African league that we have. And then we start calling, the East Coast. And then we were together until like 4 or 5, calling the West Coast, and even sometimes after calling Australia. So the camaraderie and the real dedication to exchanging of information and knowledge rather than hoarding it just because you think you can somehow get a leg up when there's 10 other people that can hear what you're saying, and like we could also listen to your recorded calls. People didn't want to hoard information. So those are some of the things that I loved best about being an SDR. And the last thing I'll say, Jake, is I loved that I felt that there was a lot of upward mobility.
Yeah.
That being an SDR, it's not like I was coming in as an enterprise account executive. I was coming in as an SDR, and being at a startup that actually promoted people, there were so many paths for me to take from where I was, as long as I lived into the company's beliefs of what it meant to be, a good employee, even though there's always issues with that. 2, did my job spectacularly well, overachieved. And 3, helped other people who just started, helped them up, gave them a helping hand, because something I learned early is that when you lift other people up, you get stronger. And I really believe that.
So everything's crushing, you're loving it. Tell me more about the prison, man. I think this is an interesting concept that we should just spend a little bit of time on. When you see professional, or maybe even just for you, what do those prisons look like? You know what I mean? Like, what are the things that you see when people are in jobs or in roles or in just situations where they're trapping themselves, or they're, what are some of the common, and maybe even as we start talking about kind of what you're doing now and how you transitioned out, how did you realize you were, again, like everything, I mean, and how old were you, by the way? So you're running a 40-person team. How old were you? Right. At that time?
I was 24.
24, running a 40-person SDR team at 24, right? By all measures of success, right? All measures of success. You are like literally top 1% of like people that are like in that world and in that role. But again, like you described, like feeling something different. Like what was it? Like, how did you realize like there's a different calling? There's like, this is the prison I constructed. Because I'm sure there's a lot of people listening right now. You've got about 70 people across platforms here, like that they probably resonate with some version of that. But what does it mean? Like, how did you diagnose it? That, man, I'm not actually, even though things look great and everyone tells me I'm great, I'm actually not living my truth.
Yeah. So there are multiple prisons, and they don't look the same for everyone. And sometimes you can look to your left and right, when you're in your professional workspace, and be in prison with some of those people, or you could be in your own prison, or, you can walk in and someone new starts at the company and you're like, damn, that person is free. But the common perception is like, F that person. That person's not cut out for this company because they're not fitting in to these other prisons that we've created, i.e. culture, right? To a certain extent, culture isn't always a prison, but culture is to a certain extent a limitation in some ways, if you define it very narrowly. And then those people that come in and aren't drinking the Kool-Aid, or the Kool-Aid doesn't taste good, they leave, right? So it's like that sometimes when you see like allegory of the cave, Plato type thing, someone that hasn't been in the cave, they come in and they're like, wait a second, there's actually sunlight out there and everything you're seeing in this cave isn't real. But to answer your question directly, Jake, it all comes down to being unaware. I didn't even know, man, that when I was 24, I made $105,000, right? I didn't know that put me in like the top 10% of earners in America. And think about it, I'm Black, right? So where does that put me as well in that demographic of like single Black men? I'm also quote unquote educated. I had a 4-year, college. I got my bachelor's, so that adds into the mix as well. But sure, even so, right? Like I had no idea of where I even stood in relation to the rest of Americans. So I'm over here in New York, getting wild with my coworkers Thursday through Saturday, blowing hundreds of dollars every weekend. Hundreds of dollars, man. There were times when I would lose my phone, next day drop $800 just to buy a new phone. That happened to me 3 times. That happened to me 3 times in the span of like 2 to 3 months. So the point is I was, as I would say, and my brothers and a lot of us would say, I was bugging. I was bugging out. I had no idea what was going on. So it comes down to being unaware. A few of the prisons, again, I want to speak from my own experience rather than like pointing the finger at people, because I think it'll help people relate. A few of the prisons that I was in was this idea that I was the man because I had a couple hundred people looking up to me at a company, that I was the man because I would roll up to these meetups in New York City and be a little loud, or come through with a gang of like my SDRs. I'd roll through with like 10, and they would stag out the room, and then I'd ask a question and then become tense, and it was just like a lot of posturing, a lot of testosterone.
Yeah.
So there was a prison of the ego. And I mean that in a very literal sense, not so much of this like Freud, Jungian type thing. I was wrapped up in myself and with my own career. 2, there was a prison that my needs superseded those of my family. What's crazy is when I was working at this startup, and I'm sure some people can relate to this, you sometimes respect your colleagues more than you do your family after a certain point, right? And Jake, I think you might be able to discuss this. I'm not sure, but I know you come from the Midwest. So there's probably some undertones of like, these people in the Midwest have no idea what I'm doing over here in New York, right? 100%. So for me and my family, I was screening my mother's calls. This is the woman that raised me, that loved me unconditionally, that carried me around in her stomach for 9 months. I was screening her calls because I thought I was too busy. Things with my ex-girlfriend were going poorly because I wasn't making time for her, because I told her I loved spending time more so with my colleagues. I told her straight up, right? And I thought being transparent was cool. I was wrapped up in the money I was making. Hey, I'm making 6 figures. I can spend and do not absolutely, but almost whatever I want, and just have my money replenished in the next 2 weeks, So it was the prison of ego. It was a prison of money. It was also the prison of the startup mission. I believed at that point in my life that what we were doing was one of the most important things that I could ever be doing with my life. And it's because I was bought in to the mission of the company. It's because I trained myself to train other people to drink this Kool-Aid and make it taste good. It's because of the people at the top that had me bought in. And it was no one's fault. I'm not pointing fingers. No. It was myself. It was what I was looking for at that point in my life. And look at where I am now, Jake, right? Like, I got this book that's coming out. I have, a good amount of money. I'd left that when I left the startup world, I had like 30K. Even after spending all that money, I had like 30K in my bank account. So I'm grateful for all of it, but those are some of the prisons that I had to find out that I was in. And to tie this up, it was a few things that allowed me to realize I was in a prison. One, just my body being like, bro, you can't be out drinking Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Like, after doing that for like a couple of years, I was like, whoa, what's going on with me? I don't feel well. Like, physically, I don't feel well. I don't have the same energy I did. 2, I was reading some books that honestly made me reflect deeply. And one of these books was a book called Disrupted by a guy named Dan Lyons. And this guy was like coming in as an older marketing guy at HubSpot. And he basically tears HubSpot apart in this book. And this guy, Dan Lyons, eventually did some like semi-questionable things with some folks. But this book, I was like, holy shit, I'm one of these people that's pushing this technological opioid on these other, younger folks and whatever. So there's a lot of self-reflection, man. And it's an ongoing process.
Yeah. I mean, you became aware though, right? You became aware that these things were happening. And I think just like at any point in your life / career, which again, I think a lot of times we just use those two things interchangeably, right? Like your life and career mean the same thing. I think, again, it's being purposeful and intentful. And like you said, it was great for XYZ period until it wasn't anymore. And so for you, all right, man. So then you say, I'm out, I'm leaving, it's over, right? Yeah. And you said, look, I want to write, man. So why don't we talk a little bit about that journey, and also how sales, as you made the move to being a novelist, and because I think a lot of people, like, again, like the next step is always like, they're going to go write a book about sales or something, right? Or do something that's very related, as opposed to being truly an author, right? And writing fiction and writing for publications. what did sales prepare you for? You know, when you kind of made this, what are the things that you directly attribute to skills you honed maybe in sales? And then talk about the journey of kind of when you started writing in that first book that, you know, you kind of shelved after a lot of, you know, blood, sweat, and tears to today, man. So I'd love to just like walk through the last, you know, probably couple of years and everything you learned from sales and the things that you look back now, like if somebody's listening to this, like this skill in particular sets you apart exponentially, you know, if there's parts or things that you think about that you learned that are most mission critical.
Yeah. Almost everything. And I'll get into specifics, but almost everything. I can 95% say that I would not be in this position with a book deal and some other stuff in the works without sales. Honestly, I'm so grateful for sales every day. And I'm also still selling every day.
Yeah.
Just differently. So the things that helped me was, of course, perseverance. Like I came into this game, and I speak with a lot of other authors, and sometimes it rubs people the wrong way, right? But like I came into this game of publishing as a salesperson. So when I wrote my first book, I was writing it as an escape from the startup that I was working at because I was no longer invested in. I no longer really wanted to be there. So instead of going out on Friday night, I started to sleep and then wake up on Saturday refreshed and write. And I didn't know what I was doing. But working at a startup, and it's not just sales, but that startup mentality of fail fast and don't get in your head too much helped me just begin writing when I did not know what I was doing. And I had a lot of stamina, right? Because if you're pulling 10 to 12 hour days, being able to write for a couple of hours, especially if you're okay with not knowing what you're doing and not judging yourself, isn't that hard? You're just like letting it flow, you know, clicking, clacking these keys and, you know, trying to put some story together. But I was okay with the fact that I might write this and it not work the first time.
Right.
I was okay with that, right? Because you know how many times I've called 200 people in a day and only spoke with one person, and that one person might have been a secretary. The mentality that SDRs, account executives, AMs, all of these people that survive, meaning that they remain and they grow in these roles for a couple of years, the mentality that you walk away with, I think if you do it right, it's like steel, man. It's fortified. That when you go to another industry where you're potentially just doing a couple hours of focused work per day, and you can also make a lot of money, you know, depending on how it goes, which the money is less predictable than in sales.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's just different, right? So I started writing this first book in 2016, May 21st. I left my job August 18th, 2016. I started writing the book May 21st as an outlet, as an escape. I quit, got a one-way ticket to Costa Rica. Again, you know, fortunately, sales put some money in my bank account. And I did what you're not supposed to do. I started Googling the top literary agencies, and I started calling them. They say never to call these people. These people are not people that want to talk on the phone at all. So I was calling some of them, and people were like, what the hell are you calling me for? Hang up, click. I was emailing my manuscript to the president of these agencies. Hey, here's my manuscript. What do you think? People are like, are you smoking rock? What are you talking about? Like rejection. But when I was getting those rejections, I looked at the rejections again. This was from sales. I looked at those rejections as a positive because I said a response is better than no response. Something we learn in sales, right? Yeah. If I'm doing a 4-week or a 6-week cadence, and I get to that last cadence and I get no response, I would have rather someone tell me no on the second step.
Of course.
Right? So then I could call you up and try to convert you still. But you know what I'm saying? So it was stamina, it was perseverance, it was welcoming rejection. It was also knowing how to speak to people on the phone and via email, and understanding that I'm speaking with a person. I'm not just speaking with an agent. I'm not just speaking with an editor. I'm speaking with a person who is giving me their time, whether via email or whether via phone. And it's the same thing that I thought, you know, back in the day when I was calling people up and making hundreds of calls, that I'm speaking with people. Now, this is a person that I want to convert into a self-qualified lead or into a closed won deal, but this is an individual, you know? So those were a few things. So I wrote that first book. Something else that helped me was soliciting feedback and not taking it to heart. It somehow feels like I have thinner skin now than I did back then, that I'm at this stage. And maybe that's something that you want to dive into later, right? Because I'm still on the come up, but I'm higher up than where I was years ago. I got a book deal. It was a good deal. I got some, I'm not really supposed to talk about it yet, but I got some Hollywood stuff in the works. And it feels now that I might be a little bit more sensitive. But anyway, wrote that first book, got some feedback from some people. 9 agents wanted to look at it. The pitch was very good, of course, coming from sales. The writing wasn't. These people rejected it. So then I traveled a little bit more. I rewrote this book, but I wrote it with the mind of getting an agent, which was wrong. And I don't know what the lesson is there, but don't do for others or don't seek this external validation if you're not satisfying your own needs and needs of those that you actually are working for, your family, other people that look up to you, your community, so forth. And that book didn't go anywhere. And then it was November 2018, and I was down, man. I had a friend that raised about 4.2 million just off of a deck. And he's like, Mateo, this could be you. Like, you should be starting your own company, or you should get back into a startup at a high level, a high role. And I was like, damn, should I go back to tech? But then at that point, I read Stephen King's On Writing. And it's a little cliche for writers to say this, but I read Stephen King's On Writing, which is half of a memoir, half of like a craft book, like telling you about writing his own journey. And he said, the best way to become a better writer is to read more and write more. And the only way that I write all these 60 odd books that have earned me millions of dollars, that have earned me all these fans, that have made an impact on people's lives, is I just get my characters into a scenario, and then I spend a couple hundred pages figuring out how to get them out. And okay, and it clicked at that point.
Yeah.
Why have I been trying to write about things that have no direct correlation to who I am, right? And what are the things that I was avoiding writing about? Sales, startup, and race, the intersection of the three.
Yeah.
So it was in January 2018 that I said, F it, I'm going to write the book I want in my voice. I'm going to write about sales. I'm going to write about startups. I'm going to include a lot about sales in here. And I had to peel a lot out that just wouldn't make sense to people, right? Like a breakdown of CAC to ACV to LTV, like all this. Like I had to pull some of that out. I had to pull out the sales funnel and all of that. But I wrote this book, and it's an engaging tale, but it also doubles as a sales manual. Because when I came into the game, I was reading a lot of Jeffrey Gitomer, the Sales Bible, the Little Red Book of Sales. Red book. I came in that way, man. So that's the story in more than a nutshell.
All right, man. So now the new book. Let's talk about it, man. So maybe talk a little bit about the book, the premise. I'm still waiting for my advanced copy. I know that's coming soon.
They're coming in a couple weeks.
Couple weeks. All right. Good. All right.
Yeah. If any people that are watching, as Jake said, there's like 70 people. If anyone in here wants to like somehow win an advanced copy, maybe you and I, Jake, can run like some type of promo.
I love it. I love it.
But anyway, so the book is called Black Buck. And for those who don't really know the connotation, the historical connotation of a black buck, look it up. It has maybe 4 meanings when it comes to my book. But the book is about a kid from Bedside named Darren Vendor. And there's a lot of Easter eggs in this, but one I'll drop that a lot of people in the public don't even know, right? Is vender in Spanish means to sell. So it's in his name. It's embedded in his name that a lot of people don't catch. Darren Vendor, Darren Vender, Darren to sell. So it's Darren. He's like 26 when he's writing the book. He's like the author, and he's looking back on when he was 22, lives in Bedside with his mom. They own their own brownstone, has a girlfriend, has his best friend. He's working at a Starbucks in Midtown at 3 Park Avenue, which is where I work.
I know that building.
Where you've been, Jake. You and I were there together. And coincidentally, where my publisher is also located, which is crazy. So this guy, he's working at Starbucks, and one day the CEO comes in and he says, give me my regular. And Darren says, no, I think you want this today. And Darren's not even sure why he says that. And the CEO is like, are you effing kidding me? Give me my regular. And so Darren spits. He's like, listen, man, I hear you on the phone all the time. You're saying that you want to become more efficient. This drink that I have for you, this like nitro cold brew, has less sugar, more milligrams of caffeine, X, Y, Z. Home dude, the CEO stares at him and he's like, did you just try to reverse close me? Right? Because Darren's like, if you don't like this, like all these other people that told me that I wanted, then you can bring it back and I'll give you your regular. And Darren's like, I don't know, maybe I did. So the CEO invites him up to the 36th floor. Darren doesn't go. It's like the hero's journey where he's reluctant. And then he eventually gets yanked up to the 36th floor the next day. goes up there. He's thrown into a pretend interview, and he says, okay, I want to work here. Like, I want to prove to myself and my mom that I can be more than, working at Starbucks, even though nothing wrong with that, of course. So he gets there, and he realizes he's the only black dude out of the whole company. He's like, what? He's like, I'm the only black dude. He fights through a few different things, as are realities in the world of startups, in the world of there's white collar work and working in America. Gets to the top, and he's like, okay, I'm at the top, but I'm the token black dude. So he hatches a plan to help other people of color infiltrate America's tech startup sales teams, redefining what it means to be a minority in the workplace. There's a lot of sales in there. It doubles as a sales manual. It's super entertaining, super engaging, and someone will just have to read it for themselves and let me know what they think.
That's like the max that you can give. So just so you know, since you started, we've already 2 people have commented they've already bought the book. They've already pre-ordered.
Thank you so much to everyone. Thank you.
Heather bought the book. Mackenzie bought the book. Everyone else. Let's see if we can get like maybe 20, 30. Let's see if we get like 20, 30 on the pre-order today. Come on. I think we can do
Peyton.
it. Peyton Carter, done. Peyton Carter bought. I love it. If we'll have to come up with something. How about this? Can we get some autograph? Maybe if we get 30.
1,000%.
So here's the thing. If we get 30 people to buy, Graham Bowman bought one. Graham just commented it.
Graham, thank you, Graham Bow.
Graham Bow.
I feel like we're on HSN or QVC.
Hey man, look, dude. Hey, look, it's important, man. I want to make sure that people get involved. I'm excited for it and excited for you. And so tell me. Look, maybe there we go. Lori Funari, she just bought a copy. Who else?
Thank you, Lori. Thank you.
Let's see who else is next. Don't worry, man. We're gonna get it. We're gonna get it popping. Your publisher's gonna go, well, hey, what happened here today?
Yeah.
We'll move a few. So how do you? When you said talking about like telling your truth, right? And you talked about what that meant in this book. And again, like I know that obviously you don't want to give too much away too. With everything that's happened, right, over the last few months, right? And obviously this whole topic becomes, especially in sales, becomes even more timely, important. What do you think are some takeaways that people will have? Like, what are, or maybe, I mean, or is that like as an author, is that something that you do? Do you tell like, hey, this is what I hope people take away? Or is that like leading the witness too much? I don't know. I don't know if that like what's the right, but what are the things that you think, at least when people are reading it, maybe a lens or some things to think about, again, without giving away the Easter eggs, but maybe just some things that are important, and maybe even if it's unbook related, maybe it's just more about things you observed that may or may not have made it into the book that, as a young black man at a startup, that you hope people will learn or take away, whether it's the book or just your experience.
Sure. Thank you for the question. I'll answer your first one straight up because I have discussed the takeaways. And you're right, I don't want to project too much, but right now I have had some advanced readers and I've gotten their feedback. There's a wide variety of feedback on this. All right. Overall, right, what I want people to take away is for those especially who have ever been made to feel less than, right? If they don't have the flashiest clothes, or maybe they are wealthy, but something happened in their family, or anything like that, maybe due to their race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, anything, right? Where they come from. You're from the Midwest. I'm almost positive people have clowned on you for that, right, on the East Coast, right?
I'm from Missouri. I was born in a 900-person town in Iowa. I lived on a feedlot in a trailer. Like, come on, man.
There you go, right? So they're like, do you wake up at 6 and go to sleep at 6 p.m., right? It's like stuff like that. So I want people who have ever been made to feel less than to understand that they deserve just as much as anyone else to chase after their dreams. And in some cases, achieve them. We're not all going to achieve our dreams, unfortunately. That's just the way that the society works. We can't all achieve our dreams. But I want people to feel empowered after reading this book to say, I at least deserve to chase after my dreams. And even less than that, I at least deserve to be happy. And I don't have to think about all this external validation. I don't have to be Kim Kardashian. I don't have to be Jeff Bezos. I don't have to be Jake Dunlap, right? With 33,000 followers on LinkedIn to be worthy of validation. Yeah, I checked before.
That's right.
That's right. So it's like that, right? But in terms of going deeper, initial reactions that I've received from this book, and it's funny because these reactions are as spectacular as some of what happens in the book. And by spectacular, I mean big, crazy. Some people are like, holy shit, this book made me extremely uncomfortable. And this book, while being very engaging, has forced me to examine my own life and who I am and my identity. Other people have said this book was so engrossing, but it got super absurd as time went on, right? Which could be fair as well. Other people were like, is this real? Like, what's going on in this startup? Like that these people, will do Monday meetings at 7, that these people will have catered lunches, that these people will have their dogs running around, that there's a sales funnel, that there's something called an SQL, that there's ACV, AMs, AEs, SDRs. Some people think that is made up, because what I've learned is that what we do in our world, in the world of startups, especially and sales, is not as common as we think it is. And this is going back to the prison of the ego. What we do is actually extremely niche. That when I've spoken to publishers or Hollywood folks, they're like, is this real? Or did you make this up in the book? And I'm like, actually, part of this I didn't make up, because it is real and because it is a little absurd, but also because I do love it. It's a love relationship, even though some of it's absurd. So I would want people to understand that they can chase, their dreams, achieve happiness. I would want people to feel seen, especially people, again, if they're a minority of any sort, to feel seen and to know that a lot of what they think goes on in their head is real. It's not just paranoia, because sometimes we can be made to feel like, yo, you're tripping right now. It has nothing to do with X, Y, Z. And sometimes it does, but that doesn't mean to allow it to stop you, of course. We need to recognize certain things. And I also want people to honestly just have an opinion at the end. Because for me, Jake, and I've said this before, and it feels weird repeating what I've said in other interviews, but it's true. What would be the biggest loss for me, and maybe this has to do with ego as well, it probably does, is if someone reads the book and they say, I'd rather someone hate it viscerally than go, and last thing is, I want people to have a primer, right? Like a proficient, like a basic relationship with sales and a basic understanding of what sales is and how to do it. Because I do include so many different tips in the book that I truly believe that if someone reads the book closely, they can apply for at least an SDR role and hopefully land it.
I love it. I love that, man. There's a book. It's an older book. It's called The Goal. Have you ever heard of this book before?
I've heard of it, but I haven't read it.
So The Goal is, it's like a business. A lot of times people read it in business school, and it's a book. It basically teaches you the idea of like theory of constraints and basically like systems thinking through like a fictional story. So this kid with a backpack, and how he can't make it because his backpack's overloaded, that then you've got to alleviate his backpack so the whole crew can move fast. Anyway, they try to mix in elements of that without any type of that. No, it's like the most anti trying to make a statement book you could ever pose for. It's like the most watered down version of that. So all right. So you want people to not say, right? That makes sense, right? Obviously that's like the sales, like almost like ghost, right? That's the, this is like not bad enough, but not good enough either in terms of like just their agreement with it. Dude, we got to talk about this. This is a good one. So we have a lot of people pouring in. Heather.
What's up, everybody?
Heather said, just pre-ordered. Jake, I love this guy. Thanks for having him on today, with a little smiley face.
Heather. I like your last name, Bundegard.
She tossed it in there. Got some other questions. Graham asked one, man. This is interesting. Graham says, do you know Corporate Bro? Are you familiar with this guy?
Yeah,
okay.
I know Corporate Bro.
What are your thoughts on Corporate Bro? This is what Graham says. Graham's tossing it out here.
So I knew of Corporate Bro from people sending me his videos, right? It's just like anyone that has good content, it's spreading like wildfire. I had only actually started following him probably like 2-3 weeks ago, right?
Okay, all right,
and
recent.
It was because, but I've seen this content, I'm familiar with it.
Yeah.
I love what he's doing. Why do I love it? Because it exposes the universality of what we're all experiencing. Yeah. You think when you're at a startup that you and your team are the only people that are getting hung up on, or as an SDR, you're the only people that A's aren't flipping your opportunity within like 5 minutes or 10 minutes. But corporate sales, bro, shows the universality of our startup experiences and experiences in sales in general. So I love that. 2, he's doing what I'm also doing in my book, which is taking the satirical approach, which is making light or joking about certain absurdities, but also not concealing the truth of them. Yeah. He's not concealing the truth of when he's like making a joke about a pipeline meeting. Yeah. And everyone's saying this is definitely going to close. But by day 30 of the month, homie who said that this is definitely going to close is like, we're pushing the next month. And those are the same deals that have been pushing for 6 months and just like never close. No shade, but
yeah, of course.
I know how it goes.
Yeah.
So I really like corporate sales, bro. I like what he's doing.
That's good, man. Yeah, I think so too. He is trying to have, I think, fun with something that, like, and you've mentioned kind of themes of this, and just shit that we take too seriously, right? Like, oh, did this happen or that happen? Like, what is going to happen if that doesn't happen? Like, what happens if the funnel conversion, whatever, is this versus that? There's another one that I'll toss in there. Did you ever go to Best of LinkedIn on Instagram?
No, what's that?
Dude, everybody, I want you to immediately go to Instagram and follow Best of LinkedIn. What this dude does is once a day, at least, sometimes twice a day, he'll grab just one of these posts. That's like, and then he always definitely go today, because he does Made Up Kid Monday, which is where he'll grab some post from someone from LinkedIn that says like, my son drew this picture for me, and he's like 7, and this thing looks like, an artist drew it, or like or he'll like call it out. He roasted me like 2 months or 3 months ago for one thing. Really? I put out this post about how, because I'm like you, dude, I love calling. I love it. Yeah. I mean, I did telemarketing in college, and I was so much better than everyone at that little thing because I just did not give a fuck, dude. Yeah. I would call you up. I did fake voices just to have fun with it. Like, I created
Jerry Dunlap.
How are you, Kay? Like, I would go fucking wild. I didn't give a shit.
Hilarious.
Yeah, I would just do all kinds. Because, dude, come on, man. I was trying to sell vacation packages, but I posted about, there's no better feeling. And I've closed multi-million-dollar deals too in my career. Yeah. Getting someone's credit card on the phone is like the ultimate sales experience. It's like there's something, and he had fun with that. So he was like, really,
hey, guy,
blah, blah, blah.
I'm hopping on LinkedIn now, and I see some questions. I see one that says, what's like the best thing that I learned from working with Scaled? Something.
Oh, there we go. All right. I like that one.
Let me see. What was the exact wording? It said, it was by a gentleman who actually added me on LinkedIn this morning. Hey, Mateo, what was the biggest takeaway from working with Scaled?
Ooh, there we go. I like that.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that question. So the biggest takeaway, it goes back to actually corporate sales, bro, and what you're talking about, Jake, is that I was able to get this bird's eye view of startups and understand that most of these companies are having the same problem. And they always think it's just them, that they get in the weeds, they get super upset, super like frazzled. And I loved being a consultant because I could go in and say, hey, you're actually not alone. And I'm not saying that to not make you feel special, but I'm letting you know that this has happened before at other companies, and myself or my colleagues at Scaled have helped other people achieve these, surmount these challenges. And we're going to do the same for you. So that was one of my biggest takeaways. And the second, selfishly and personally for me, and I've discussed this with you, Jake.
Yeah.
Startup consulting was one of the biggest gifts I received in my life and blessings. Now, let's make no mistake. I was putting in work. And it's not like Jake was handing me free money. You know what I'm saying? But for me, it was the right job at the right time because it gave me the freedom to, and this is weird, write, WRITE. I had the freedom to make really good money, to work with a variety of interesting people that really believed in what they were doing across North America, not just in the States. And it also gave me a couple days to just focus on my writing. One was my biggest takeaway, and one was just like an expression of gratitude for startup consulting in general and the startup ecosystem.
Well, I appreciate it. Trust me, man. You gave a lot as well too. So I know you put in the work. I know you weren't putting in the 20. I know you're putting in quite a bit more. And it's always so different too. Yeah, you're 100% right. Everyone thinks it's special or they're different. It's just different personalities. And that's what I enjoy about it is like the problems. I mean, look, half of my job is I sit there and I just go, oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. That's crazy. Oh yeah. Because people, you can't see it when you're in it. And then it's really just navigating. It's all change management, man. It's all just the people. It's how do you get the people to move and the people to change, not the process. The process you can figure out. But if you can't get the people to change, then none of it matters.
And one thing I'll say on that, Jake, real quick, and this is relevant for anyone in sales, you have to focus on the bigger picture. You have to, or else you get too. You have to focus on the day-to-day as well, on that call that you're making, on that deal that you have to close.
Of course.
But you have to contextualize that within the bigger picture. Because when I was starting out as a consultant, and again, I thought I was like, oh, this guy's coming from this startup. I know what I'm doing. I'm not going to name the companies, but you might remember some in California where it just didn't work out because I wasn't living in the bigger picture. I was like, Jake, this VP of sales is blocking me from enacting this change. And then you would say, of course he is. That's his job because he's territorial right now and he doesn't want you to step in because the CEO hired us, not the VP of sales. So I had to understand that the work that I'm doing is in the bigger picture and I can't get lost in the short-term day-to-day battles. So for any salespeople that are watching this or anyone who wants to get into sales, please, 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 when things get rough, also when things are going really well, keep the big picture in mind. What's the big picture? A promotion? Is it being in a different place in a year from now? Is it starting your own company in 5 years? Is it buying your mother, your father, your significant other, your guardian, whoever, a house? Use that because that is what you will derive purpose from. And I think that one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of people make in this industry, tech and sales, is that they're constantly looking for motivation when what they need is actually inspiration. Motivation will fade tomorrow. I can get you jacked up and motivated. And then when you're alone, you're like, okay, now what? But if you're inspired, that's a fire that's continually burning. That's not going to go out with, some people spitting on it or
right.
I was going to say pissing on it,
You can say pissing on it. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
All right. We have one last question, man. And this was fun, dude. I'm glad we did this. I'm really glad we did it. You and I caught up, when was it? Maybe 3-4 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Made this. So I'm really pumped, man. But this is a good one to end on, I think. So Jeremy Burns asked a question. He says, given all the things we're talking about, and you've got a lot of young people in here too that are asking questions about starting careers in sales. Jeremy says, how feasible is it to have a lifelong career in sales? Given the employee-company relationship structure is struggling, quota-carrying roles are such a grind every single day. Like, what do you think about where sales? And obviously, look, man, none of us are Nostradamus here to like predict the future. But is there truth to that? That you think that like having a career in sales, and it wasn't your truth, but for other people, do you think that it is tenable in the way that it exists today? Or do you think that there's things that are going to have to change on both sides, maybe even on the employee or just the relationship side?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, most definitely. If someone loves sales itself, not just selling at one company, I think you can most definitely have a lifelong career out of sales. You can retire on it. And if you have, survived to a certain extent, then you might be able to retire with a good amount of money. However, I think that it isn't as tenable to have a lifelong career in sales at one company. People, there's a stat just a couple of years ago, I was hearing how specifically millennials are switching jobs every 3 years, right?
Yeah.
All these salespeople I knew back in the day have already had 2 or 3 jobs since then. And that was in the span of 5 years from when you and I met. But I think that if someone wants to have a lifelong career in sales, they definitely can. However, what's the trade-off, right? Because if you're switching jobs every 3 years and you're not increasing the amount of money that you're making, then by the time you're 40 or 50 and you want to retire, you will have made the same amount of money for the last 20 years. And then hopefully you have a 401k or something because you might have not had enough to put away for like a nest egg. You know what I'm saying? But I think that what is more fruitful is people understanding that companies change just like people, right? Change is the only constant, to quote that maxim. So if you can go from different companies when it's your time to go and knowing that it's your time to go, when you're still at the height of your employability, you go to another company and you either remain like an account executive or a senior AE, or you level up as possible. And then you also increase your OTE, your on target earnings, right? And for people who, might not know, the combination of your salary and plus, the commission that you're making, right? Because people are asking what's an SDR. So I understand we have a variety of people in here. You're able to do that while also finding joy in your work. And I know that this is a very American thing that, we all want to find joy in our work. And, my parents are immigrants. I'm a first generation American. Did my dad find joy in his work and doing a 2.5 hour one-way commute twice every day? Probably not, but he did it. But if you are in a position to find joy in your work, to increase your on-target earnings, and to know when you have to go at the height of your employability and move companies for the next 20, 30 years of your career, and you can definitely have a lifelong career in sales.
Yeah, I think, the only piece I would add is that what I feel is going to happen is it's one of two things has to happen. Either we need to figure out a way to reestablish trust between companies and employees, because that is just at a low. Like what I feel like is like it's a cycle now where companies are under investing in training their people at like an unprecedented, like the programs that I see people putting not even small companies, big companies. And so because we're under investing in the people, because we know they're going to leave in 2 or 3 years, so we don't want to put the investment in them, and then people don't feel invested in. We've got this cycle where the company doesn't want to invest and go all in on, McKinsey or whoever, because they know that she's probably going to leave. Therefore, they underinvest, which makes, so I feel like we've just got this cycle right now and you just got to choose. Like for me as a company, my choice is like, I'm going to invest in you. And if you leave in a year and start your own company, cool. But I only know that's my recipe. Is like, I'm just going to invest. I'm going to make sure you get what you need to succeed. You're going to get properly trained, get up to speed. But I think it's really difficult for people now. And what I really think will start to happen is, and I've been thinking about this a lot, is that you'll just see free agents just say, look, man, here's what's up. You're going to pay me a lot more than you pay everybody else because I'm going to go out and crush everybody. Right. And so if you are that good, I think you can start to write your own ticket. That's what, look, why do you think I could have stayed being a VP of sales and made a lot more money over the last 7 years. If I stayed at the VP, I could have picked up more little equity here, little equity here.
Have another acquisition or IPO.
Yeah, dude, for easy, right? Like Glassdoor sold for 1.2 billion. That was all right. Right. Like I'll take that.
Okay.
But I could have kept doing that. But dude, it's like, but I realized the free agent life was like being and building a company that can do that type of work without being in-house was like win-win. It's like I get to do the things that I really enjoy, but I don't have the bullshit politics of what it's like to work internally. I can tell you to go fuck off, CEO, and not get fired. And, I can be more of myself and actually, I think, be a better partner to someone, not as a full-time employee.
Wow. So do you think that there's going to be these like mercenary type contracts with AEs?
I think so.
Because we've seen that. I mean, you did that a long time ago with SDRs.
SDRs, yeah. And I think you could do it with super teams too. Imagine I go get 3 or 4 sellers. I go, look, dude, you're going to pay us $100,000 a month. And here's the results we're going to generate. And you get a pod of 4 or 5 people who say, I'm going to go to this early stage startup. You're going to give us 2% of the company, 3% out of the gate. But here's our revenue target. It's all performance based. Because if you're that good, that's the thing about sales, man. People want the cushy part of sales. It's like, if you're real good, it's like, nah, I want the upside side.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't want that anymore. So I don't know.
And then when they poach your people, they're going to pay you $50,000.
That's right. If you do that, that's great. They can embed with you, or they're like, all right, cool. Look, we're all making ridiculous money. We can sell it there. We don't need to have a plate. We can do whatever we want. So I feel like salespeople right now have no leverage. And
you're trying to have the starting 5 bulls.
Why wouldn't you?
I see what you're doing. And you're Phil Jackson, and you take them everywhere. They don't want to leave. Actually, they don't get poached.
That's right.
That would be awesome.
Why wouldn't you? I mean, like I think as we move to this more freelance gig, whatever the new gig economy, whatever it ends up being, I just think either the employers are going to have to invest in some much different way in people, or everyone's going to go freelance. Everyone's going to be like, look, there's just nothing in it for me to do this for you because you're not investing in me the same way, And so why would I go all in on you? So that's my hot take for Mr. Jeremy Burns. Mateo, thank you, man. I really appreciate it. This is a lot of fun. Can't wait for the book. We'll have to see what the pre-orders did. I'm counting on all of you. I said 20. I actually want 30 copies sold in less than an hour. Just doing it. But no, man, I'm excited for you, man. I think everyone's going to love the book when it comes out, or hate the book, whatever, as long as it's not right? Yeah. But no, I'm so excited, man. Thank you so much for joining us. Everyone, have an amazing rest of your week. We appreciate you. Make sure to follow Mateo. We dropped his details here. We dropped the website, buyblackbuck.com. Drop all that in there. And we'll catch up with everyone on Friday. Have a good week, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for your time. Thank you for your attention. I appreciate it. Just want to say that, and if anyone has questions, about sales or anything that I can assist with, hit me up on LinkedIn or just email me at mateo@mateowrights.com, and I'll be more than happy to help you. Thank you, Jake, for the time.
I love it, man. Appreciate you.
Cheers.
Yeah.